Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. Not a ton to talk about in today's show. The Dolphins made a few moves that are interesting. We'll start here. We got a little bit of a article from Adam Beasley, obviously longtime Dolphins beat writer, kind of illustrating what happened between Mike McDaniel and Vic Fangio. This comes from Pro Football Network's Adam Beasley. Mike McDaniel confirmed the Dolphins did not have the intention of moving on from Vic Fangio after one season, but the third-year head coach indicated that a few one-on-one conversations led to an understanding it would be best for the sides to part ways. Fangio quickly agreed to terms with the Eagles, which came after players heard rumblings the accomplished defensive coordinator was eyeing a move back to Philadelphia during last season. Pretty much everything we already knew. I mean, it's very similar to what happened to Bill Parcells in New England many years ago, but that was during a Super Bowl, which is even more insane that somebody would be that checked out right before a Super Bowl game. But clearly he never wanted to be a Dolphin, and clearly that's what those conversations were about. He just wanted to go to Philadelphia. Obviously that's where he's from. That's where his family's from. He tried to go to Philadelphia the season before he signed with the Dolphins. Obviously, they just didn't have anything for him to do. And we made him the highest paid coordinator, so I'm sure that helped as well. But clearly, he was never happy here, unfortunately. And honestly, it was a little bit underwhelming with some of the... Like, granted, we did a lot of great things. I think the best thing he did as a Dolphin was how he developed the outside line. I mean, we got the most out of those players, and it's unfortunate Jalen Phillips got hurt. But statistically, that's one of the greatest defensive line production seasons in Dolphins history. Now, as a whole defense, it's not even close. It's not even top 10. But as a defensive line and rushing the passer, statistically, one of the best. And Van Ginkel and what he was able to get out of the outside linebacker unit, I think was the best thing that he did. Other than that, it was very underwhelming. I think we all expected a lot more from him. And injuries really didn't do us any favors in that department. But, yeah, it is unfortunate. Now, granted, who knows what the defense would have been if we were more healthy. Because when they were all healthy and together, it was like a dominant unit. And we never really got to, and this is the saddest part about last season, we never got to see that against a good team. Every time we were healthy, it was against like the Jets on the road. I think that was like Christmas. It was in December. Like we never got to play a great team healthy, which is the most annoying part about the whole thing. I think maybe the Chiefs game in London, we were healthy, if I'm not mistaken. I'm proud. I think Phillips was healthy. Bradley was healthy. I want to say the corners were there at the time. Maybe, I think maybe we were missing a safety. Maybe Deshaun Elliott didn't play in that game. I don't really, which doesn't matter because it's Deshaun Elliott, but I don't really remember. Maybe that was the only time we were healthy versus a good team. Anyway, moving on from that, I hate even talking about it. What else? Okay, I mean, this is really sad news. Former Dolphins cornerback Vontae Davis passes away at the age of 35. Now, people I don't know how many. I mean, I'm sure everybody who's listening to this remembers Vontae Davis. One of the worst trades the Dolphins have ever made. Him and Sean Smith were actually pretty good together. When you go back and look at the Joe Philbin era, there were just so many bad decisions made. And this was one of them. And he was a really good player. One of the better first-round picks of the 21st century that we had. Great, obviously, great player, great dude. The Hard Knocks video is infamous. Sucks that he passed. Didn't know he was related to Vernon Davis until, I don't even know how that skipped. I'm sure that was mentioned back in the day. I just forgot about it. But very sad news. One of the better Dolphins defensive players of the 20, really, honestly. Him and Sean Smith were really fun to watch. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Latest on Connor Williams. This also comes from Drew Rosenhaus, obviously GM for a lot of different, and Barry Jackson, the Miami Herald, who says Williams' potential return to Miami has not been ruled out as a possibility. The two sides will remain in occasional communication while the center rehabs. Really unfortunate. Would have been more interesting. I don't know where he would be if he was healthy. Arguably the best interior offensive lineman, I guess you could not say Robert Hunt was, because at least Robert didn't snap balls over people's heads 50 feet over. But if Connor comes back with the addition of Brewer, it's a very, Brewer, who is been very healthy throughout his career. Connor Williams has been healthy. I think in college he had some injury issues, but in the NFL he hasn't had that many problems. So that would be a very good interior offensive line if they get him back before the season starts. We'll see where, obviously, even the article stating, see where the rehab goes. But if he does come back, you think about Isaiah Wynn, Brewer, Williams, that's a pretty good interior line. So we'll see where that goes. And people sleep on Wynn, who played pretty good football for us while he was there. Speaking of good offensive line football, this comes from this next news story. Big news, very underrated. Dolphins re-signed tackle Kendall Lamb. Was phenomenal for us. It cannot be overstated enough how good he was for the Dolphins. I feel like, speaking of the Philbin era, this is a player that they would have let walk back in the day. A piece that's really good and underrated, that they just didn't value for whatever reason, especially when you talk about depth. But Kendall Lamb is one of the better signings of the offseason so far. And I know that may say, well, that's not, but he really played well, dude. He played really good football. And even he got banged up, unfortunately, last year. But he's such a good player. Could start for, I think, and be a pretty good starter for a lot of teams in the NFL. So I really like the signing. One of the better depth. I mean, again, and you talk about Teron Armstead, this is a fun, really good insurance policy. Who knows? Maybe he takes another step forward, and he turns into the longtime starter after Armstead. I think that's. I mean, even if you guys remember last year's training camp, a lot of beat writers were talking about how good Kendall Lamb played in training camp. So very interesting. Maybe, like I said, maybe he can develop into something. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins to sign at defensive tackle Tierra Tart from I believe, what was his last team? The Titans? Played for or was it the Texans? No, it was the Titans and then Texans. Or was it the other way around? Which the reason he was cut, allegedly, is because of some off-the-field issues, maybe some locker room. It seems like locker room issues, but from all intents and purposes, he seemed like he was a very good player for them, especially the Titans. I think it was the Titans at the end of the year. And very good, big player, renowned for his run stopping, even though statistically his numbers last year weren't as good in terms of if you like PFF. He slipped from what he was the previous two seasons. Maybe that was because he changed teams mid-year, but and had some off-the-field things going on, and maybe we can clear some of that stuff up. But if we can clear that stuff up, the Dolphins have added, see if I have the list here, obviously Jonathan Harris, Neville Gallimore from the Cowboys. They added, I think it's 3 defensive tackles, including Tierra. And we'll see what happens. I mean, out of everyone that we've signed, this is, to me, what we needed is someone who can come in and help stop the run. We're not going to replace the sack production with the players that were available at free agency. I mean, it's literally impossible to do that. But what you can do, and which is more common, is find interior players that can stop the run. And in all reality, it's nice to have an inside pass rush presence, don't get me wrong. But that's really what you're going to get in free agency. And I think the Dolphins have done the best job of them that they could, considering the circumstances. So all in all, I think this is a good signing for that purpose. And yeah, I like the signing. He's the most starter level defensive tackle they've signed. Now, it is interesting that they've signed this many of them, because it's like, what are they going to do in the draft? And I think that depends on how the board falls. It could be like one of three positions. I think it could be receiver. I'm going to do receiver / tight end in the event that somehow Bowers falls, but that's not looking very likely. And then guard, I think, is out of the question. I maybe if there's someone very talented, that kind of like a Laramie Tunsil situation, who falls that far, I could see that happening. But I think really it comes down to receiver, defensive tackle, and defensive end. I think those are the three positions that are most likely. And hopefully it's not some reach at defensive end. I think that's the thing that I've feared the most, is that we're going to have a Charles Harris situation again, which I hope that doesn't happen, because they don't need that position as much as they need even more than a third receiver. And I know everybody's freaking out. Now, granted, I like a lot of the edge rushers in this draft, especially the one from UCLA, excuse me. Love him to death. He's going to be a great player. So there are players, Chop Robinson, who's more of a project, but he could also follow the second round. But yeah, I don't know. I think we'll see what happens. Hopefully they don't reach too hard and, get someone that can't play on the edge, save their lives. I know that they've had visits with the Florida State defensive end Curse, which is interesting. He's more of at least in college, more of like the best thing that he did was pass rushing. It could be interesting to see what he can do on the next level. But yeah, I think I could see that probably being the least favorite of the Dolphins. Like, Rhodes would be reaching for a pass rusher at that position. I just hope they take the best player that they can at that position. And they should have, those two things should align. They should be able to get a player that's really good at a position that they need, because of how the draft is being propped up, with a lot of quarterbacks going to be going on the top of the draft. We're talking 5 potential first-round quarterbacks. So naturally, that's going to drop some people, and then you got to throw in, hopefully someone makes a bad pick here and there, makes a reach, similar to what the Raiders have done. So you never know who can fall to that. I definitely want to do a mock draft. And then trades are a factor as well. So it's going to be interesting, that's for sure. I think we covered pretty much everything. I like the signings and the interior so far. Tart's definitely the best one, and people forget Sealer's still there. So if they do draft someone like a Murphy from Texas, he would have a really good player next to him. It's not like we're relying, if we did draft a defensive tackle, oh, you're the guy, like Christian Wilkins back in the day. That's not going to happen. So that's a good thing. So it's either going to be defensive line, receiver. What else? What was the other position that I said? I already said receiver. I guess guard, you could, I don't know. Someone made a good point of if you look at the highest guard we've taken in this era is Robert Hunt, and that was in the second round. So, again, you never know with the way that things fall, and they could take a tackle for all we know. That would be more of a reach. I don't know. It's confusing when you talk about the offensive line. It just doesn't seem very likely that Chris Grier would make that decision, in my opinion. But receiver and edge makes sense for the team. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed. And, I almost forgot. There's one story left. Some of you just clicked off. Latest on the Odell Beckham situation. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins continue to search for a third receiver behind Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but the team isn't willing to break the bank for the position. A league source that has talked with the Dolphins believes the organization isn't only willing to spend a few million on another wideout. Okay, what does that even mean, a few million? The team reportedly made an offer to Odell Beckham Jr., and Jackson says the veteran, quote, remains Miami's top choice for the role. Jackson also passes along that the two sides have continued to speak about a potential deal, but the writer believes OBJ isn't looking for a significant discount, the $15 million he earned for the Ravens in 2023. In that case, the Dolphins' offer for a few million might not be enough. Okay, here's the thing. If we're breaking this down, and I've seen other Dolphins fans say this, where they're like, "Oh, first of all, look at the draft. Look at the talent level of the draft. There are so many, and I'm not even joking. Great, like, I know this is like a cliche at this point because everybody's saying it, but it's true. There's so many great receivers in this draft that you could get on a rookie deal. You could get one in the second round on a cheaper deal than a first round contract that could become a really good player. So, and we're talking about a guy who's we want to play the 3, not the 1 or 2, the 3. So why you would sign Odell to this $10+ million contract, according to this article, that he's looking for? What the heck? Why would you do that? And he's going to find out his market's going to shrink vastly after this draft is over. So, and two things we know. Well, one thing that we know. I don't know why I said two. One thing that we do know. Well, two things that we know, actually. Mike McDaniel doesn't like playing rookies on offense. And the second thing is, there's a lot of really good players in this draft at receiver that are cheaper than Odell. And this is what I meant to say. The second thing is that they're looking for a third option at the position with a draft that is loaded with receivers that they could get vastly cheaper, and they visited with Xavier Worthy. And there's so many. Like, Burton is one of my favorite receivers in the draft out of Alabama. Ladd McConkey's probably, that would be a dream Dolphin pick. He's literally what they need, and he's fast, so that fits Mike McDaniel's whole thing. And so there's so many good. Tez Walker maybe in the later rounds. So many good options. There's some good tight ends. Obviously the FSU receiver who could transition to tight end. So it just makes no sense why anyone would sign a receiver right now, whether it's Tyler Boyd or Odell Beckham. Other thing I would tell Odell Beckham is, like, if I was the Dolphins, it would be like, you didn't play that much last year. You only played on third down for the most part because of your injury history. You played in an offense where you gained 500 yards, which is pretty impressive because he's coming off an injury and didn't take a ton of snaps. We could not only give him a ton of playing time, but you're going to be under one of the best offensive minds in the NFL, and you're the third option. So it's like, I feel like he can have a bounce back season in this offense and get even a bigger payday next year from either us or some other team because of Mike McDaniel and the way that he can work with. I mean, you got to think about all of the players that he's worked with. Like, Andrew Hawkins is a great name. I mean, Taylor Gabriel, Andrew Hawkins, Gary Barnidge. You think about some of the players that he's worked with and who have credited him to getting the most out of those players. And, he's done it everywhere he's gone, coached. So, you talk about a talent like Odell, who, as a third option, would be really scary in our offense. In the way that we would probably use him. Even if we could, when Reek, and this is why maybe we even still draft a receiver if we get Odell, which I doubt that would happen. But when Reek and Waddle or ever taken out of the game, and I don't have to tell you guys, whether it's injury or in the middle of the game, the success rate of that play goes down so much because of the depth behind them is just terrible. So it is a need, and hopefully, what if and they have a plethora of options that they could utilize whatever they want to do. We'll just see what their decision is, but doing it before the draft was silly. So if he signs somewhere else, it's not the end of the world. They can still get a really good player in the draft if they choose to do that, and which would make for an interesting training camp because they still have players like Eric Ezukama, who looked really good last year, and but maybe isn't exactly what they need in terms of a polished receiver. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I almost forgot that. That was a very important story, too. And obviously the Tyreek Hill thing, saying, oh, he signed. Tyreek Hill, I love him. One of my favorite Dolphins of all time, probably. He's definitely up there. Definitely would make like a top 10, top 15 for a lot of Dolphins fans, especially the younger generation. But he's crazy. I think we can officially say it. The dude is crazy. And it's amazing he hasn't been suspended. And hopefully that doesn't happen as I say that, but it is kind of quite amazing. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys in the next one.